Hello and welcome to this edition of Upfront. I'm your host, Nancy Wilmot. Now, I want to start by saying that we're all getting very used to working under the restrictions placed on us during the COVID-19 pandemic. We're working differently, we're socializing differently, we're certainly shopping differently. And all of those changes have had an impact on the economy, both nationally and locally. And whenever that happens, whenever the economy takes a hit, the agencies that serve the most vulnerable in our communities are challenged. Agencies like the food banks and the soup kitchens that feed people, that meet the most basic needs. Well, in Port Alberni, those needs are being met in a particularly Port Alberni way. The Alberni COVID-19 response team was formed. It's made up of 5 different groups who have come together to pool their resources, their energy, and their volunteers to meet their challenges. And today I'm very pleased to welcome a member of one of those groups, Captain Michael Ramsay of the Port Alberni Salvation Army. Michael, welcome to Upfront.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Now, Michael, I started by saying that the COVID response team is made up of 5 different groups. Could you tell our viewers who are those groups and how did you all come together?
Certainly. So our agencies are Canadian Mental Health, the Bread of Life, Literacy Alberni, the Shelter Society, and of course the Salvation Army. And we came together. It was quite interesting because when we came together, I was actually on holidays in Europe when this whole COVID-19 thing exploded, and we were racing to try and find our way back into the country at the same time as I had phone calls from Port Alberni saying that, we've got some challenges here. And so it was exciting in the midst of arranging it. I was able to speak with Colin Minions and John Edmondson, who are both on the board of the Bread of Life with me. And we were able to chat together about our other agencies that we're involved with and try and coordinate an idea right from the beginning of how, at a time such as this, in the midst of a pandemic, we can get our 5 agencies together, pool our resources, pool our volunteers, pool everything we've got at our fingertips so that we can use all of the community's resources to the best possible effect to help the most number of people at this time.
But Michael, I think some of these groups, it's very self-evident how they came together. The Bread of Life and the Salvation Army are both involved in feeding people every day. But there's other groups, Literacy Alberni, the Shelter Society, perhaps is self-evident, Canadian Mental Health. How did all of these come together? Because they have perhaps the same purpose, but very different purposes.
Yes, and it's been really wonderful. Everybody's had different things that they can enter into the mix. Early on, the Shelter Society was offering its truck if we needed it to head to other communities to pick up some items. Literacy Alberni has actually been providing our volunteer coordinator, which has been such a blessing. Somebody who's been able to field those phone calls and be able to help us put the volunteers exactly where we need them. Canadian Mental Health, every day they've been making sandwiches there, and Colin and I have been on the phone many times a day trying to coordinate efforts and all that. Bread of Life, of course, is the soup kitchen in our community. And that was one of the big questions when COVID-19 came is, well, if we can no longer gather together to feed people who need to be fed, how are we going to feed them, right? And the Salvation Army, we're the food bank. And it's the same question. If people can't come in here to meet with their worker and get their food, then how are we going to solve this challenge? And Canadian Mental Health also has their kitchen program and does a big feeding service to their people. So we brought our agencies together as best we could to try and solve the question about how do you feed the most vulnerable and take care of them at this most significant time.
And we've talking a lot about the increase in the need, the increased demand. Well, you have those statistics because you were running the food bank before and the Bread of Life was feeding people before in those pre-COVID times. How much has the need for your services increased?
Yes, it's been quite a bit. I was looking at the numbers, and in a pre-COVID world, between the Bread of Life and the Salvation Army, we were taking care of less than 200 individuals a day, sometimes as low as 100, sometimes almost up to 200. At the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, I think we fed and cared for 700 people in one day.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that's 700 individuals, not 700 meals. And so that need was far greater than anybody could have anticipated. I certainly had no idea. And of course, it goes through cycles. And we're very thankful that we seem to be declining now, but we're still about 500 people a day that we're serving in this community who are still in very real need, even as we're transitioning through to the next phase in the pandemic.
This is all quite extraordinary, Michael, the amount of food that you're able to deliver. I am curious though, what exactly are you delivering? Is it all hot meals? Is it all cold sandwiches? What are you delivering where and when?
Yes, and wonderful. And this, of course, has changed over time as we see the needs of the community. So we've been providing the hot meals, of course. So we've got the kitchen at the Bread of Life where Chef is still working away to make some great hot meals. The Legion has been providing their kitchen as well because the need was so great. And so we've had people cooking hot meals there. The Canadian Mental Health, they've had people making sandwiches every day for us to distribute. We also have got all of the food bank resources and the groceries that we have coming into the Salvation Army. So then we've been putting together hampers that have groceries of the basic needs, whether it be eggs, milk, vegetables, combined with the hot meals that are made at those locations and some pre-made sandwiches, and trying to put together the healthiest food that we can distribute in the safest possible way to people in need. And with that in mind, one of the things that we developed here is up to 16 different routes at different times that we would have drivers safely bring things out straight to people's homes. Yes, so particularly at the height of this, when some people were basically locked in their house for a month or 2 months, and weren't going out, it was such a blessing to be able to provide safe food right straight to their homes.
This is just extraordinary, Michael. And I can't help but be struck by the notion that really none of the agencies could have done this on your own. I mean, you really had to come together to meet this need.
Oh, I think so. The scope of it is just so large, and we're just so thankful for all the partner agencies that are able to come together and help, as well as all of the individuals from the community who are volunteering to help. And one of the things that came up with, of course, the delivery to people's homes is all of our agencies work with a number of people who are either homeless or hard to house. And so then, of course, you can't deliver to somebody's home if they don't have an address that you can deliver to. So then it was wonderful. We were able to get one of those big mobile kitchens, a CRU, from the Salvation Army in Gibsons, BC. And so we're able to serve hot meals straight off of a mobile kitchen to where people are on a regular basis if they don't have a deliverable address. So it's just been such a blessing to be able to work together in this way to help out so many people in need.
What a mobilization, Michael. This is, and I use that word advisedly because this is like a wartime mobilization where all of the resources are pulled together to meet one great enemy. You mobilized in wartime.
It does. A lot of it seems very much like that, right? Pulling all of our volunteers together, coordinating the efforts, and really being the home front and contributing every way we can to make this go as best as it can.
Now, in the midst of all this, these challenges that are facing communities across North America, really, I can't help but wonder whether forestry communities like Port Alberni aren't being hit a little bit harder, particularly because of the strike. I mean, many workers were off for an entire year prior to this. The strike had ended, but many of them didn't get back to work. Were they hit harder? Are you seeing that perhaps Port Alberni is hit hard?
I would imagine that was probably one of the factors that contributed to the great need in this community, because certainly the need far surpassed what we were expecting. Yes.
And have you been surprised by who is coming out for meals, by the demographic of the people you're serving?
It was certainly an interesting demographic because we had all segments of society who needed access to food, right? So seniors, children, families, and individuals. It's really been a cross section, and of course, the foods most need is to those who, for whatever reason, didn't have access to the resources that they need. So some of those would have been on an ongoing basis. Others, as soon as this hit, found themselves in a crisis, and others as it developed because of other issues that came up with needing to be in their homes, all of a sudden they found themselves in this situation. So exactly who's been utilizing the services has changed over time, and I'm just so glad that we've been able to help out everyone who's requested help.
Yeah. And you actually made reference earlier to the fact that we are actually moving through different phases. We are entering stage 3 shortly. How is that affecting what you're offering? How are you adapting to the new phases, or is it any different?
Yes, so everything has always been hitting a moving target, which is, I think, caused a little bit of stress for our volunteers around here, but everybody's doing a wonderful job. Some of the big changes that we have to consider now is, of course, the Salvation Army. We have a thrift store in our building that operates in normal time, but we've closed it all down so that we can provide all of this food and support to the people in the community. So we need to consider if we're going to open up that, because as people are out, they're really in need of the clothing and other resources that we provide on a daily basis through our store. So how do we open that up while at the same time continue to provide for the food needs of people? And well, one of the solutions that we've been looking at is because the biggest challenge in that is actually donations, because people want to bring us all of their spring cleaning and they've had wonderful time to do housework. And so they've cleaned out their houses, and I have phone calls every day. When will you accept my donations? And it's actually been a little bit scary. So the community, the COVID response, they're actually going to put together a garage sale. So in a couple of weeks, you'll see all over the media an opportunity for people to donate their goods to the athletic hall. And then we'll keep it there for a week, and then we'll sell it there. And that way people will have the opportunity to get rid of all of their stuff, and it won't overwhelm our volunteers here at the same time.
Michael, you're reading my mind, because I think I might very well have been one of those people that called. I have boxes of stuff waiting to donate, so I'm glad to hear there's a garage sale coming up. And we're talking about so many changes that that all of the agencies were forced to make very quickly. Are any of those changes positive? Did you find best practices that perhaps you hadn't put in place before that you're going to want to keep after this is all over? When we get back to whatever normal is, will you maintain some of these practices?
Yes, and well, I think one of the biggest changes has been how close the agencies are working together, and I'm not willing to let go of that relationship anytime soon.
Yeah.
Because with our meeting on a regular basis and talking about sharing resources, it really helps out the community so much better, because there's no duplication of volunteers, financial expenditures, or other such things. So that's one of the things that I would really like to keep moving forward, is the communication between the agencies. And another thing is, as long as we're able to keep the mobile kitchen, I would like to have it available to serve those who, for whatever reason, are unable to access other resources in the community. It's been quite a blessing, and most days out of the 500 or so people that we've been serving on a day, more than 100 of them have come right off that truck who have no deliverable address. So it would be a good resource to keep into the community.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up working together, because let's face it, this isn't a big town, and it's hard to divide up the volunteer pie, the donation pie, so that all of the worthy groups get their fair share of volunteers, of donations, to keep them operating. And really, you found a way to make it work most efficiently.
Yes, it's a real blessing. And of course, coming through this, you use the war analogy, and I think the camaraderie that is common in that setting really applies to the teams who have come together here. And as we're sort of working side by side to help those in need, I can only imagine that our whole community will be a whole lot stronger for it.
Absolutely. Now, do you see a time when we will return to, I don't even know if I should call it normal. I don't know if we will return to what was normal pre-COVID, or will things always be a little different?
Yes, I don't think the old normal will ever return, right? I think there will be a new normal, and we'll keep changing, and we'll keep seeing what the challenges are. And the more we talk together, the more we can see how to address those needs. Um, I think some of the needs coming up right now are just around people's trepidation about entering back into the world. I've talked to a few people who have been really good at isolating, but now, with all they've been seeing is news about COVID, and all of a sudden they're allowed to step outside their door, it's a little bit scary.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, we've of course been promoting A Causes line for people in very difficult situations, but the ministerial also has a prayer line. And so we've been promoting that lately, and members of the community have been taking hold of that. So I think there's always new things coming up and new opportunities. And I think it's just the responsibility of all of us here to look for those opportunities and try them out and see how best we can help people in need.
Michael, I hate to say it, but you seem so invigorated by all this. Now, I know to say you've been enjoying it would be wrong, but you seem to be thriving on this rising to the occasion to help the community.
Rising to the occasion, yeah, absolutely. I really enjoy the victories in the midst of this. I enjoy the notes from people who call up and say that, I really wouldn't have eaten this week without your meals. Thank you so much. The opportunity to be a part of a community as wonderful as this and providing for those in most need, I really feel honored and blessed to be a part of this. And I'm so thankful for the role that I've been able to play. It's been a lot of work and I'm exhausted, but it's a good exhausted. And I really love it. And like I said, it's been a real blessing to see how the community can come together to help those who are in most need at this most significant time.
You've had so many volunteers helping you. You've had a community outpouring of donations, but I know this time isn't over. What do you need now? Do you still need volunteers? Do you still need donations? How can people help?
Yes, we can always use volunteers. The needs for the volunteers is constantly changing. One of Up until now, drivers was our biggest need, but I think we've got our drivers under control. What we need now is wonderful people who are willing to portion out food into serving size meals and to help put groceries together as we continue to provide for those in need. And of course, anybody who wants to help out with that upcoming community garage sale, let us know.
How do they contact you?
They can contact us either through the Salvation Army, the Bread of Life, or Literacy Alberni. And give us a phone call and we'll put you to work.
And also, how do people contact you if they want to make use of your services? Now, I know I've done stories on this in the past, and there was a process. You came in for an interview, you met with somebody from the Salvation Army. What does that process look like now? Should people call ahead? If they know the truck is going to be somewhere, can they just show up?
Yes, well, definitely contact us, and we're still absolutely barrier-free as we've been through the pandemic. And so just give us a call straight at the Salvation Army, and our number is 250-723-6913, and we'll set you up for whatever help will best suit your needs.
Michael, you had to look up that number. I thought it would just roll off your tongue. You should know that by heart.
Yeah, I can't remember numbers.
But there are other numbers that I know that you know only too well. And even though you've kind of brought this up before, I want to bring them up again to drive home to the viewers how important it is what you're doing. How many people are you feeding per week in this community?
Yeah, so on average right now, it's still around 500 people per week that we've been feeding. Since this began in mid-March, we've served over 26,000 meals to people in need in this community. The need has just been, like I said, I think greater than anybody could anticipate. And we're just so thankful that, each day the volunteers are here working hard away to make sure those 500 people can get a safe, healthy meal.
Now, Michael, you said 500 per week, but I know from earlier conversations you meant 500 per day. Yeah. I don't often catch you, Michael Ramsay. Do you know how many of those people are without homes? Now, again, I know you've kind of given this statistic earlier, but how many of the people you serve, of those 500 per day, are homeless in this community?
Yes, I'd say around 20%. So around 100 of the 500 would be people who have no fixed address, or no fixed address or no deliverable address. And so that's quite a significant amount. And that is why, again, we're really blessed to have the mobile kitchen, so we can have it at the same spot every day so that people can know the routine where they can get their safe, secure, and healthy meal.
And you mentioned before that many of these folks are people that you've had connection with in the past, so you've been able to serve quite quickly. But I'm wondering, are you making connections with new faces, with new people that you can see are going to need your services in the future?
Yes, I think there's been a few new faces, and many of the faces between our agencies are people that we've been walking with for a while. And so that's a blessing then too, because when this all happened, we were already in relationship with a number of the people in great need, which made it a lot easier to formulate a plan between our agencies to be able to help out as many people as possible.
Now, because you are my guest here today, I'm getting this information from the perspective of the Salvation Army. But I'm wondering, and I don't know, Michael, maybe this isn't a fair question to ask you, but you are on the board of Bread of Life, so you have some insight into the other agencies. How do they feel about working in this umbrella group, about fitting in with the other groups into the COVID-19 response team?
Yes, well, I mean, the Bread of Life, Canadian Mental Health, and the Salvation Army, we've been working very closely together throughout this whole thing. And from the Bread of Life perspective, I can say we just had our board meeting, and everybody's been very excited that we're able to contribute, that we're able to help. Because the fear from the Bread of Life point of view, when we hear pandemic, is we've got this population we're serving on a daily basis, and all of a sudden we can't do it because we can't open our doors. So what can we do? And so then when we put our heads together with the Salvation Army and with Canadian Mental Health, and we had the volunteers from the community driving things through, and we were able to get the mobile kitchen, it was just such a blessing to be able to be a part of that. And one of the things with the meeting too is we wanted to make sure that, we're not going to rush back into as soon as possible, throw open our doors and just willy-nilly welcome everybody in. Well, we've got this routine, and while we've got these teams that are working hard away to keep everybody safe, we can make this transition gradual, seamless, and really provide as many supports for people as we can.
Oh, it's such a valuable service that you're providing. And I recall one of the first conversations I had with you, Michael, about the COVID response team. And I asked, who are you serving? And you told me a story about a senior person who was living on a disability and had been quite able to get out and do their own shopping, but suddenly they were hit with COVID-19. They were afraid to go out. They were unable to get daily food. You provided that service. You began delivering to that person. And that, to me, is always the face that I hold in my mind, in my heart, about who you're serving.
Yes, that's absolutely been a big contingent of the individuals that we've been serving, and it's been such a blessing that we've been able to help them stay safe, both physically and emotionally and spiritually, right? Provide them with that safety and security, with knowing that they don't have to worry about their meals, that they're coming to them, and that the supports are available.
Well, Michael Ramsay, to you and to all of the members of the Alberni COVID-19 Community Response Team, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. It has just been such a pleasure to have you here today.
And thank you very much for having me, and thank the community for all the support they've been giving us as we've been providing this help. It's been a real blessing. Thank you.
Michael, it's always my pleasure to have you here. And to you, the viewers who joined us today, thank you so much for watching Up Front right here on Shaw Spotlight. I'm your host, Nancy Wilmot, and we'll see you again soon.